My next guest, always a pleasure to visit with Texas State Senator Charles Perry here on the Chad Hasty Show. And Senator Perry, good afternoon. How are you today?
I am good. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Awesome. Well,
Hey.
no, it was a big day in Austin, Texas. We finally, I tell people the circus is in town, and finally got to work. We had redistricting hearings this morning and lasted about 1 o'clock. So it's rolling now.
Well, how did that go? Because redistricting is obviously it's going to be a big issue for you guys. It's a big issue for all of us out here in West Texas.
Yeah, it's purely a math equation, right? You take the number of people per the census, which we won't have till early estimates or July. So we really actually don't even have the numbers to have legitimate conversations over till July, maybe earlier. And so right now it's just doing the statewide hearings in communities so that they have a voice of communities of interest and making sure that their concerns are heard in compliance with the Voting Rights Act. So that's kind of what this is about and will be about until we actually get final numbers from the Census Bureau.
What is the and I wasn't going to ask you about this, but I just saw a story come across where there are, I guess, now 4 Texas House members who have tested positive for coronavirus. What's the mood like among lawmakers? Are lawmakers, worried about catching it? Do they not care too much about catching it? What's it like actually trying to govern during a pandemic right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. If you go out and poll the general populace, it's about a 50-50 split. And it doesn't matter what party you are. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're set on politically. It's 50% of the people think that we should probably hunker down and not come out, and 50% of the people, think that we should have no restrictions at all and go back to life as normal. And I would tell you that the members kind of mirror that, but generally speaking, outside of those concerns individual members may have about catching it or fear of safety, there is a consensus. We want to find a way to govern legitimately. So as of today, I test. I will test every other day. My staff test every other day. We want to make sure we trap it if someone has it. But I would say that it's kind of very cautiously find a way to keep people from getting sick so that we can get the work done in the next 140 days. And I think that's what people don't understand is we have a finite amount of time to get some very big stuff done, and that we have to protect members from being sick to be able to do that. So the atmosphere is let's find a way, I guess, is the best way to say it. It's not like, nobody wants to be here. It's just if we're going to be here, how can we safely achieve the goal and objective and make it as responsible as we can?
Yeah. I want to ask you, there's so much to get to, and a couple of stories making statewide headlines. One of them out of the Texas Tribune. Lawmakers weighing whether wastewater from oil fields could replenish the state's aquifers. Talk to us a little bit about that. I know that this is something that you've spent some time looking at.
Yeah, I've been on that for multiple years now, and I keep having a conversation with people. Can we clean up water for it to become a new water supply? This would literally be a new water supply. And the answer is always followed up with, we can't do it because it's too expensive. And so what I hope to do in my biggest water initiative bill this session, I've worked over it throughout the interim with stakeholders, should be hopefully ready for filing next week. We're working on some final language. We'll set that record straight by having all of the stakeholder groups that are involved in produced water. For people that don't know, for every barrel of oil that comes out of the ground in the Permian Basin, about 6 barrels on average of water comes out with it. That's the water you hear about being injected back into the earth or it evaporates, and that issue has created some environmental concerns itself. But let me give you the number. Roughly 30 million acre feet of water since 2009 has been produced out of the Permian Basin. 30 million acre feet. That's 325,000 gallons per acre. And if we could just capture 400,000 acre feet out of that source, that would fulfill our statewide water plan through 270. So the numbers are huge. The production is there. If we can truly scale it, produce it, and clean it up and become a new water supply, that would solve Texas water needs in perpetuity effectively. So it's a big issue. This study will basically require it to be done at a level that when we're done, we'll either say, yes, it's affordable, yes, it's scalable, yes, it can happen distribution-wise, or it's not worth going back there. Technology's there. Nobody's ever put all the pieces, the economic piece of that together to decide, can we move forward? And it only works in the Permian Basin, really. Got to have a significant amount of water to do it, to justify the investment. But if we can do it, and if we can get it right, we can literally create a brand new water source that could recharge aquifers and river basins that in West Texas specifically is directly, in need of.
Visiting with Texas State Senator Charles Perry here on the Chad Hasty Show. Another story that is out, and I've had some people who have already texted in asking what is the future for rural broadband. Something I know you've talked about, you've concentrated on. One headline from the Tribune: Internet and phone services in rural Texas threatened as state slashes subsidies for providers. What are your overall thoughts on this, and is this going to be something that you're going to be taking a further look at during the session?
Yeah. So rural broadband's on my radar for the last 6 to 8 years. The thing that's changed is we now have federal dollars coming to actually follow through on those conversations. Several things. One, Lieutenant Governor's going to make it a low bill number, probably under 10. Two, he is committed to working with me and 2 other members in the Senate that we actually get a very objective bill, one that guarantees success with the monies that are coming through the Fed so that every rural void of broadband service is filled. So we're going to get a one shot at this money. It's never been this level before, and in the past we've got little levels and it's not been done effectively. So you'll see me along with a couple of Senate colleagues working hand in hand on making sure that rural broadband initiatives are met. The PUC conversation that's ongoing through the Tribune and Texas in the last 2 days is something that was surfacing back in March. PUC has a statutory authority to effectively assess to make sure rural teleconnects have subsidies that keep the cost of teleconnects affordable. More importantly, they provide fiber for not their broadband network, but other service providers' broadband networks. And if they go out of business, then the fiber that carries the broadband today could potentially be in danger. But that's a separate issue. It's in the courts now. We hope to have an answer on that pretty quick. But PUC needs to do its job as it's statutorily required to do and fund that fund. And if we don't like the way that's being done, the legislature needs to have that conversation. But we shouldn't be here today on the PUC problem.
Visiting with Texas State Senator Charles Perry. Before we get into an event that's going to be going on here in Lubbock that I think is going to be a big event, one more legislative item that I want to ask you about in particular, and that is a bill that I know that you're working on dealing with women's sports, gender identity. Our new president, Senator Perry, seems to want to, dilute, harm, get rid of women's sports by allowing men to compete in women's sports, boys competing in girls' sports. Obviously, you're not a fan of that. I don't think a lot of Texans are fans of that. In fact, I don't think a lot of women's sports athletes and moms and dads are happy with that. What do you plan on doing about it?
Well, the UIL 373 that I filed is going to probably get traction. I expect it'll get bipartisan support because you can't be against women athletes, right? You just, that's the narrative that it really does. Title IX, for all practical purposes, would cease to exist. My daughter, being a woman athlete, worked hard, played select league basketballs and ran track, and it's just unfathomable to me that we have a society that says it'd be okay for someone that's, first of all, genetically through drug therapy has been altered to come in and compete. We already have laws against steroids in use, so I don't know why we're having to have this conversation. I don't know what the president's thinking, but it's an all-out assault on women and women athletics that those women deserve their rightful place in the history books. And Title IX has done a yeoman's job of furthering their initiative, and this has the possibility of undermining it. Plus, it's just common sense, you know. I don't understand where common sense has left the building, specifically with this president on these issues. It's political pandering and to the base at the worst, and it has harmful effects to those that don't deserve it. Women should have their rightful place in athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to that continuing to your bill continuing to get out there, and we'll see the latest on that as it develops. Now, this weekend, you're going to be part of believe it's a 2-day event here in Lubbock, and that is the March for Life Lubbock. Tell folks what's going to be coming up here. I know that there were different rallies over the weekend, this past weekend, including over in Abilene. We're going to have a big one in Lubbock this weekend.
Yeah, it's part of a national Right to Life march, and so 4:30 on Friday afternoon, starting at the Planned Parenthood building, about 22nd in Memphis. Our group are going to start. We're going to march effectively around a mile back to that place. I think I speak on Friday afternoon at that event. There's going to be several other events that night and on Saturday from other national speakers and Texas statewide speakers coming on the Right to Life issue and the pro-life cause. So I'd encourage anybody that can come out to participate. I think it's going to be a great informational event. I think it'll be a great opportunity to network. But specifically, the March for Life, 4:30 to 6 at the Planned Parenthood building, and start there and come back around to there, about a mile walk. And we would love to see a lot of participation in that for people in the Lubbock community to show that they still are very much a pro-life community. I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
So if they can come out, be there. Hopefully the weather will permit, and it'll be a nice event and a good event.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, this also ties into, a vote that we're going to see here in Lubbock, later on about Lubbock becoming a sanctuary city. Have we heard anything new on that lately as far as, momentum building and maybe different events leading up to that vote?
Yeah, I think probably along about April. Obviously, 10 days out from early voting there towards the end of April, we'll get really engaged in advertising and promoting. It's a little bit early in the process. We definitely are going to have some pushback. But other cities are continually going down this road of approving this ordinance. And Lubbock should be in that suit. You've got to draw the line in the sand at some point and start pushing back on things that are just not right morally or probably constitutionally, if you look to the Constitution to provide life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for all, including the unborn. And Texas has had that ruling from the Supreme Court that we have a responsibility and an obligation to protect the unborn. So I hope people see it for that. I hope people get engaged in that conversation, and I hope that we do it with grace and love that we need to do, and sensitive to the emotional side of that, but at the same time, we're talking about life, and we need to be consistent with that in our beliefs as Christians, as people of faith, and we need to be solid as a city and a community, I think, that supports that. This is a big issue for Lubbock, but it's a bigger issue for the overall cause if Lubbock gets this done.
Absolutely. Texas State Senator Charles Perry, appreciate your time today, and we'll visit with you throughout the legislative session.
I look forward to it. You guys call me anytime.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
That's Texas State Senator Charles Perry here on the Chad Hasty Show.